What's been going on, Logan?
Another beautiful day, man.
Yeah, I feel you, man. It's been pretty interesting, man. The world's been busy.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's a party. It's a party out there. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, exactly, man. We had the whole ship thing in Baltimore, and then the shootings in Russia. It's been pretty insane, actually.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch. I've been keeping tabs on this ship collision, and things ain't looking too pretty, to be honest, man.
Do you do you feel like that was like a cyber attack kind of thing,
Man, I
or
think it was the captain crashed directly into the pylon as a direct retaliation for not funding the Ukrainian war. That's what I think.
okay?
That's just my
Yeah,
personal opinion. Like if you watch the ship as it's maneuvering before power failure, he turned the ship to pretty much point directly at that pylon.
right.
Yeah, if you see the 6 and 8 speed, 8x speed video for the time lapse of the collision, yeah, he pretty much arced the ship directly into the pylon.
Is he still alive? Did he make it,
Oh
or
hell yeah, he's still alive.
okay?
Ship that big, the pylon's not going to scratch that thing, man.
Man, that's crazy, man. That was a major bridge.
Yeah, yeah, it was. It was a major bridge.
Yeah, I feel like that's just the start for this year. This year's
Now it's
been
a major underwater obstacle to one of the most significant U.S. ports that exist.
right.
Yep, it trapped two of the most important naval vessels that we have in regards to repair and servicing of ships at sea, reef supply and fueling. Yeah.
And wasn't a lot of important things transported across that bridge.
Oh hell yeah! But more importantly, it was what was transported under that bridge.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's Port of L.A. is the number one port in the U.S. If I'm not mistaken, Port of Baltimore. Hang on, was it Port of Baltimore? Can't type today. Port of Baltimore. Uh, ranking by total volume shipping. Yeah, yeah, they're the ninth largest port. Yeah, in the world.
Hmm.
Oh nope, sorry. Wall Street Journal says. Yeah, it's supposed to be pretty. Yeah, it's number 8. Yeah, it's number 8 in the U.S. and I think it's one of the largest in the world. I'll have to look up the numbers for total rankings. 17th, and then that's 21. Oh, well, there's your answer right there. It was 17th as of 21. It was ninth as of 23, and then it was 8th as of 24. So yeah, they targeted it because it's increasingly becoming one of the most significant trade ports in the country.
Wow.
Yeah, that'll be my guess. They wanted to hit somewhere where it would hurt.
So, how do you think the U.S. is going to react to Ukraine after this?
Brother, we got a president that can't even spell ice cream. What you think? Man could barely eat it.
Oh man, yeah, it's interesting, man.
I think the average age of our U.S. senator and congressman is grandpa. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's to me. That's how you know these elections are kind of rigged, man. Who keeps voting these same people in?
Well, it's not who gets voted in, it's who pays enough to get the seat.
Right.
Elections are a bidding war, man. Always have been.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because you have to remember, it's just like what they keep saying. It's like, well, they'll sell the presidency, but it'll cost you X hundred of $1 million for the VP or the presidency.
Right.
Yeah. And then they just pull the candidate that they know is going to win. They throw you up against somebody that they know is going to lose. And then you end up with a presidency. It just costs you X number of hundreds of million. And they trade sides every, year or two or 4 or 10, depending on, what's up for election. I mean,
Right.
same
It's
thing.
always back and forth. Like when was the last time there was two of the like same, like two Democrats back to back or two Republicans back to back? It's always like,
Yeah.
going back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the better question I ask is when was the last time that you knew what sponsors the politicians had?
Right.
Like, the easiest way to figure out who put them in office is to follow the money. You got to start
Right.
with super PACs.
I feel like most of the big wigs they bet on both sides, so no matter who gets in, they still get
Mhm.
a piece of what they're looking for.
Yeah, I've picked up a few local elections, and I just threw money at both. Didn't matter who won.
Right.
Yeah, this diversification. We do it every day, whether it's real estate or bullion or stocks or like cattle. I mean, it's you don't buy everything of the same thing. You throw money at both sides or whatever options are available, so you can diversify based on what you need. And if it's politicians, I mean, there's only two parties. That's why the model works, is because there's only two parties.
Right.
You give both sides, 30,000, 40,000 each. You've paid for half for a local election, and for a congressional seat, you're talking anywhere between 200 to a million for a Senate seat, and that's for full price. And then effectively for presidency, the average bidding price starts at 400 million for a VP, and then it moves up to about 1.2 to 2 billion for the president.
Right.
That's the average cost, man. I mean, that's you just effectively just syndicate that as a cost basis and say, hey, I've got 2,000 billionaires that are interested in having some kind of vested interest in this presidency for some reason or another, and well, it's 2,000 divided by 2 billion, and that's your bill.
Right.
And it's a pretty economic decision too, because it's like, all right, cool, well, 2,000 divided by 2 billion, and what is that? You're looking at what is that? Math on that. My brain doesn't work right now. Yeah, it's about $1 million. Yeah.
Yeah, million.
Yeah, that's pocket change.
Yeah, it's kind of. I mean, if you just the average everyday person, it's kind of like
Yeah.
your effect is minimal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's just like, and I liken it to companies. Countries are companies. You're president of the company not because you're president of the company because you're the best at the job. It's you're president of the company because you paid the most.
Right.
It's just like with high-level executives and second and third generations. It's either they got their shares from daddy or they, daddy wrote a big check and now they're president of the company because daddy paid enough. And that's just the reality.
Yeah, the same cycle just repeats throughout history. You can only have
Yeah.
you know.
It's just like looking at kingships going all the way back to the medieval times. All the significant nobles and all the significant merchants, the thing they all had in common is they paid the king the most.
Right.
I mean, it is what it is. Money makes the world go round, factually. Money builds actual bridges, and you need bridges to get places. And that's just the way shit works. I mean, if you're a brokey, sorry, and it hurts your feelings if you gave $100 to Bernie, but the only thing Bernie's learning is how to get his grind on, man, for his second and third Lamborghini, because he ain't getting an office.
Right.
The best he's gonna ever get is a senatorial seat with the kind of money he raises. It just is what it is. He doesn't have the interest, and he doesn't have the interest because nobody trusts him.
Right.
It's trust and confidence, because you can't legally tell them what to do. But if you don't have the confidence to believe that they're going to vote the way that you want them to, you're not going to spend the money. And it's just that simple. And that's why the vast majority of political gambit is literally just providing assurances to the interested parties that are your financial backers. And that's why they go and do the baby kissing crap. It's really because they're meeting with people there and they're giving assurances that the way things are going and the way things are going to go are going to be in their best interests.
Right.
That's the game of politics, in factual basis. I mean, I'm sorry if that hurts people's feelings, but you live in a plutocracy, and it always has been and always will be, no matter what political system you call it.
Yeah, they just do enough of a dance to keep people from, rebelling and going crazy, like make them
Yeah.
think they have a choice.
Well, the reality is simple. Is Missouri is actually about to demonstrate this. It's the environments that you create that are most conducive to the most capital is going to create the most intense economic center. And since they're now abolishing income tax for corporations, they're about to experience a very substantial influx of companies.
Hmm.
And I'm looking at moving companies to Missouri.
They
Simply
they
because,
abolish they abolish income tax for corporations.
yeah,
Wow.
because they're about to pass a bill that's going to abolish income taxes for corporations. And I'm
Hmm.
like, fuck yeah, sign me up.
Yeah, they're about to become a new like mini Texas. Like it's a flood of companies
Yeah.
going over there.
Companies are going to leave places like California and New York, which they already are and have been for a long time. I've been saying this. And they're going to start to get a big piece of that action because cost of labor is down. Cost of wages are extremely suppressed because 1 in 7 live in poverty. And so, I mean, you start talking about low cost of labor, decent education. They're not great, but I mean, they're decent. You pump up the property values enough with enough infrastructure investments. And yeah, sure, you throw some tax credits around and yeah, you're going to get a shitload of businesses to show up. So I don't know who the comptroller is for Missouri that just came in, but they figured the shit out pretty quick, or they already knew what was what. I mean, it's simple. It's if you don't give someone an incentive, they're not going to do what you want.
Right. So when are they supposed to pass this, or has it already been passed?
I think so. Hang on, let me look it up. Missouri.
Because it might be a good time to get in on that into that real estate because
Yeah. Approved to phase out corporate income tax is March 29, 2024. Current S6, Missouri. Yeah, they're about to phase it out. SB 93.
oh wow.
Yeah. Currently it's 4%, and they're about to eliminate it entirely.
What's the I know Kansas City, Missouri. What's the other major cities out there?
No idea.
Hmm.
Find one. I mean, literally, what companies are going to do is top 10 population centers in Missouri, because that's what I'd do. And I'd look at it: Kansas City, Independence, Springfield, probably Springfield, Columbia, and St. Louis are going to be the destinations, because these are the places that I know the names of. I've been to
Hmm.
Springfield, so I know that one. Kansas City, St. Louis, everybody knows St. Louis. And so those are probably going to be the places they go, and maybe Chesterfield, depending on population size. But yeah, they're
Yeah.
they're going to go where the biggest population centers are because the infrastructure exists there, and that's how they're going to make their choices. It's based on infrastructure and relative availability of population.
Right. Yeah, I need to look into the price of real estate out there because once companies start moving out there, it's going to
Oh,
shoot
it's
up.
skyrocket. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, that's a good question.
Let me take a look at that. Let's see. Let me take a look at St. Louis.
Yeah. Oh, bitchin'. I have reciprocity to 50 states. Holy fuck. My license reciprocates to everybody. That is, oh yeah, except for Florida, because apparently they're assholes. Yeah. Let me see the guidelines for that.
St. Louis.
Yeah, let me see what Missouri's reciprocation requirements are. Yep.
Let's see. Wow, these houses ain't as cheap as I thought. It's pretty
Oh, that's
expensive.
bitchin'. I just have to pass the law portion. I have to pass the law portion, and I have to take their MREP. But then my license will reciprocate there.
Hmm.
Heck yeah, man. Free money.
Yeah, St. Louis ain't as cheap as I thought it was gonna be. It's somewhat pricey, like 350K and up type.
For a major population center and one of the largest population centers in your state, that's cheap.
I mean, yeah, it's cheap in comparison to like.
Low sevens. It's still stupid cheap. I mean, you got to think Alabama, when a couple of the bureaus moved into Huntsville's area, and NASA started to scale, and defense contractors started migrating out there. Property values went from 100 and 200,000 to 800,000. So,
Right.
relative trend of a 400% increase, you're looking at 1.2.
Yeah, I wish I would have gotten in on it before it blew up. But
I've said for a long time, man, you got to get in where you fit in.
Yeah, yeah. If you see the deal available, you got to jump on it.
Yep. I'm always hunting deals, man.
Buy now, ask questions later.
Well, you just got to have a good plan.
Yeah.
Unlike the government, you got to have a good plan.
What do you think about the Baltimore like real estate market? I know they got some like really low deals out there.
Bro, I would buy houses in Baghdad before I would buy houses in Baltimore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like, straight up. Like, Baltimore is just as bad as New York. And New York is literally losing malls, entire malls at a time now. There's actually MTA's got a huge issue with that because one of their most prestigious malls is about to just literally leave. They're about to vacate. They're shutting down 100% of the stores in that building, and they're trying to sue to keep the stores open and force the vendors to continue to operate their business. And theft has gotten so bad that SWAT teams are now present on the facility premise on a regular basis. And like the second you have a SWAT team at a mall,
Right. You know
all
something's
bets,
wrong.
all bets are off. Like when you have to deploy a SWAT team to a mall, you have a much bigger problem than a business is equipped to handle, either from a security or a liability perspective. If you have that many issues that you need a SWAT team on premise on an active basis, you have a serious problem that is so far beyond the scope of what a company can deal with. You should let them close
I
because
remember
it's not
under
safe for them to be there.
under Giuliani, wasn't it like New York was extremely safe, like statistically speaking?
Mhm. I used
So,
to go to New York.
yeah. What happened? Like just the people they elected, the
Poli-
new mayors, or what?
The politicians changed. When the politicians changed, the DA policy changed. And
Yeah.
with the DA policy change, they went from a very police friendly, number one police station and force in the world to, well, I don't know if you knew that, but New York police, NYPD used to be the most prestigious non-military police unit on the planet, like in the world. Like people from all over the planet would come to New York to train at the NYPD Academy and with the Academy instructors to learn how to become police and to train police and create the next generation of police for their country. And then they would go back to their country and use similar training tactics and techniques with their police. And
Hmm.
now I mean, the police aren't even showing up anymore. I mean, they're showing up, but not really. And it's
Right.
like the response times. I mean, they're not Detroit level disastrous. I mean, Detroit's at like a 59-minute response time. I was
Right.
watching one video where, if I'm not mistaken, they said that a bank robber called in and said he was about to rob the bank, robbed the bank in 20 minutes, and left. And the
Mm.
police still didn't show up on time. And I'm just like, that's wild if that's actually true. But I mean, mathematically, it works because it's like if you take 20 minutes to rob a bank, which is typical. I mean, you're still 30 plus minutes to go. I mean, you could rob a second bank, like you
Oh, right.
could rob the current bank, and the bank next door still have 10 minutes to spare. Like, or you could rob the bank in 20 minutes, take 20 minutes to count the money, and then leave. Like, that's pretty wild. Yeah. That's pretty bad, but that's Detroit. But yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised businesses are shutting down. The way the DA treated Trump and everything else. I mean, between the crime and the political harassment and persecution, people aren't going to stay and tolerate that. People aren't going to waste money on investments. People
Right.
aren't building businesses there, and they're like the finance companies are leaving, but that's fine because the tech companies are coming. And I literally laughed my ass off. Factually, like I have an inch less of ass. Like
The
people
tech
have
companies
to
are moving to New York.
they're leaving New York. The
Okay.
finance companies are leaving New York.
No, no, yeah, the finance is leaving, but you said the tech is coming in.
And that's what they're claiming. And I'm
Mm.
just like, one, you just harassed one of the largest data center builders on the planet. That's Kevin O'Leary.
Hmm.
He's leaving. Grant Cardone also leaving. And I'm just like, two of the largest builders are leaving. Like O'Leary builds data centers, and the data center guy's leaving. You're not going to get tech companies if the data center people won't build a data center there.
Right.
Like tech companies need data centers, otherwise they can't go there, and they don't have the resources to build a data center unless they're like a Google. And the first question Google would say is, "Why would we go there?" Because we've already tried to go there, if you remember correctly, and then that Cortez screwed that up. AOC, yeah, she screwed that up. Remember, because she interfered and meddled with the deal so much that they went somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Tech companies are not, in fact, going to New York. And if the money companies aren't there, they have no motivation to go to New York. It's just a higher cost of real estate. And there's tech concentrations for talent elsewhere that's less expensive in places like Florida. So why would they go to New York to pay significantly more for real estate with no data center and no affordable power, higher taxes? It's the complete opposite of what any business would do. And so I'm just like, no, tech jobs are not going to New York. Like, there may be companies there that have tech openings, but tech companies are not leaving places like Texas and Florida and Colorado and going to New York. Like, that's why the finance companies are leaving and going to where the tech companies are.
Right.
Yeah. And the biggest thing for New York is it's a finance supercenter. So if the finance companies leave, what does New York have left?
Nothing really.
Yeah. Like, almost everything in New York is driven by their ability to obtain financing. If the financing companies aren't there, they don't have a snowball's chance in hell.
I know a lot of the finance is moving to like Dallas. Man, I think they're, the southern states, they're eventually gonna have to make some kind of permit or something for people coming here. You know what I mean? Because
I say have the entrance tax. I still advocate for the entrance tax, a 90% entrance tax. If you come from a liberal-leaning state like California or New York, you're bringing all your problems with you when you come here. So you get charged. You get charged an exit tax from California. I want to charge an entrance tax to come in.
Right.
Yep.
And I don't see how people don't wake up, because you see the same pattern across the cities around the nation. You know what I mean? It's like California is not that different from what's happening in New York. It's not that different from Chicago.
No, they're all a train wreck. That's why I keep laughing when I see rolls that pop up occasionally in Chicago, and I'm like, I don't want to get shot.
Right.
It's a hard no for me.
Like, they don't realize the problem until like it's gotten to such a level they can't like run from it anymore.
Well, my thing is when you have companies like Walmart leaving, that should be the biggest red flag of all time, because they will build Walmarts in pretty much anywhere they can make money.
Right.
And I'm just like, if Walmart is leaving because of crime, you have a serious problem. And that's the issue universally, is they're not prosecuting crime. And because they're not prosecuting crime, Walmart is taking record losses, which, by the way, severely negatively impacts us in other states. Because I don't know if you've heard, but there's about to be a subscription charge for self-checkout at Walmart.
Because you got to get that Walmart Plus membership.
Yeah, it's $98 a year. You have to pay for the privilege of using self-checkout now because of all the theft.
And then, that's really stupid, man, because they wanted to push you towards self-checkout because they didn't want to hire more cashiers. And now.
Yeah, well, they did it because of cost savings, because it's becoming more and more and more expensive to have low-skill labor personnel in a store. And so they're trying to keep the people. I mean, in all fairness, they are trying to keep the people they have. And they're trying to keep the people they have while still keeping their jobs in stock and not just. I mean, this is Walmart we're talking about. They're one of the world's vastly superior logistics systems in existence, if not the superior logistics system in existence. Like, the U.S. military and DoD comes to Walmart for advice on logistics. That's how good they are at logistics. And so when the institution is having issues with logistics, that's the world's specialist in logistics, you have a problem. Like, it's a non-conducive environment, and it has nothing to do with their capabilities. It has everything to do with the environment that you've subdued them in. And that's why Walmarts are just leaving these areas and turning them into food deserts. And I don't blame them. if they're just going to steal from you every day, just leave. Shut your store down and leave. Cut your losses. They took, I think it's $85 billion in losses from theft. $85 billion.
I mean, it's not surprising though. Like
That's the
you
gross
ever,
income of countries.
I mean, like when has the honor system ever really worked that good? Especially
And places with good culture all the time. They don't have these issues in Japan.
well, not enough. Well, Japan has a homogenous society, so America just anybody's here. So
Well,
it's
it's not just about homogeneity. It's about the culture of the homogenous group, whether it's Norway or the Netherlands or Australia. Australia has a really good mixed group, and they don't have these issues. It's all about culture. And it's just that, in Australia, if you attempt to steal from a store, you're just going to catch an ass beating at the door. Like, someone's just going to beat the hell out of you as you try to leave. And that's what's starting to happen in the U.S. as you start to see customers start to attack other customers who are stealing from the store. But, I mean, you shouldn't have that in the first place. Customers shouldn't have to stop other customers from stealing. They shouldn't steal in the first place.
yeah.
And the biggest issue is a lot of them are stealing, not because of a necessity, because, I mean, you could make a poor moral argument for necessity. They're stealing to resell assets on the internet. They're stealing stuff that they can resell later. And that's causing major issues for companies like eBay and Amazon because it's illegal to grift. And so any kind of grifting or fleecing is illegal. They can't sell those goods. Now they're having to validate whether or not the goods were stolen or not. And Amazon and eBay shouldn't have to deal with that. That increases the costs again to everybody else around them because they have to increase the amount of manpower and security. And that's terrible. That's bad for everybody. There's no wins. These are all L's, huge L's. Because we lose self-checkout, which is extremely useful, especially for people like me that are in a hurry constantly. We lose the ability, or we have to pay for the ability to have it. We have an increase in cost of goods from the stores because they're not just going to eat those losses. They're going to increase costs to pay for those losses. And so you can expect Walmart to increase their costs in the near future by a significant percentage basis to compensate for the theft that they've experienced recently. And then on top of that, you're starting to see more obstructions to be able to get stuff. I mean, some places in some cities, you can't even get a damn Gatorade. Like when I was in New York, I had to have the shop owner come over at the 7-Eleven to unlock the cage so I could grab a Powerade and a Coke.
Yeah. Everything's locked behind cases, and they move to they're gonna move to a system where you got to use some biometrics to unlock it.
I mean, honestly, I would be all for. Hey, Wesley, can you go ahead and turn that off? Just kill it. Appreciate you. But yeah, I would be totally for the fact that if you have an issue of serial theft at stores, that when you have like a door you have to walk through in order to get inside, and they scan your face and you're like one of those serial thieves and they just won't open the door for you. You just can't go inside. You literally can't go inside. You can't enter the store. Not just that store, but any store that's in that network. Just block all of them from going in. It's like the door won't open for you. You can't go in.
Yeah, I mean, we pretty much turned into China, like the surveillance society.
Well, those technologies already exist in the U.S. and have for a long time. That's how a lot of these big stores like Walmart and Target actively track you for your theft. And what they do is they wait until you've stolen enough to be able to prosecute you for a felony, and that's when they'll prosecute you. And so, like, if you end up like stealing like a candy bar or something, I mean, you stole it, but I mean, it's like you were like scanning your 200 items or whatever, and like you're swiping and swiping to scan things really fast, and like you throw your candy bar in the bag by accident because you weren't paying attention, and like you just keep scanning and scanning and scanning, but you didn't pay for it. They just track the fact that you stole the candy bar, and that effectively goes up against your facial recognition profile, and they track that. And it's like, as long as you don't steal enough to where it's a major problem, it's effectively an accidental theft. But like when you get over like $2,000 or $3,000 is the typical threshold I keep seeing. That's when like when you go to the store and you go to shoplift again, and as you're going towards the door, the police are waiting for you because they were contacted the second that you showed up at the store.
Right.
Yeah, and that's when you end up getting prosecuted for all the items you stole previously, not just the ones you stole during that trip. And so, yeah, they just build a case against you, and then they nail you with that, and then you're going to jail. But that's the big issue with these stores is in order to get anything done, usually they have to do stuff like that, and they shouldn't have to. Again, it's a culture issue. It's not the store's fault. The stores shouldn't have to build a strategy to mitigate mass theft in the billions of dollars. And people shouldn't be shit people.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can't. You're gonna have that if you have lax enforcement of law. You know what I mean?
In the
Like,
absence of law, there's no order. I mean, that's what law brings, is order. I
right,
mean, it's one of the biggest problems with people is people. Well, yeah, besides the fact that they're breathing, is most people are decent people, not because they're good people, but because they're required to be decent people. When you remove all obstructions and all consequences and all accountability, the absolute worst of people will rise to the top naturally, simply because there's nothing pressing down to repel that behavior or impulse. And the problem with that is once you take the cap off of that box, there's no stuffing Pandora back in.
right.
And so that's the issue, is you've got these cities that have had these policies to where you're just going to tolerate theft. And now you have theft tourism coming to America from South American states, where they're now coming in to burglarize homes along the border states, especially targets like California, because they know that they can just come up here, commit burglaries, and then go back to South America, and there's no problems. They won't be arrested. They won't be detained. There won't be any consequences, and they can't get shot because of the ridiculous self-defense regulations that they have in California. And so it's pretty much turned the entire state into a target.
Yeah, one of those judges ruled the illegals can have the guns, but the
Yeah.
everyday citizens can't.
Yeah, you have to go through all these permitting processes, but they don't.
Right.
Yeah, it's literally a double standard by a legal definition, and it's actually illegal. You can't have a double standard of enforcement. You have to actually have equal enforcement of the law, and that's the other problem with California, is they want to give all these extra perks and benefits to illegal immigrants, and the consequences of doing that is you're going to have people that are going to respond typically in two types of ways. One is going to be cartels, where they're just going to dramatically increase trafficking, not just from Mexican cartels and South American cartels, but now also Chinese and South Asian
Yep.
cartels. And then there's going to be people like me, which is like, okay, cool. If it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. I'm going to import a lot of extremist Christian ideologues from the Vatican and Poland, and I'm going to flood the country with those immigrants. And it's like, now what? And it's like, now you're definitely the whitest of white people are coming. Now what are you going to do? Now all of a sudden immigration's an issue.
Yeah, it's really interesting, man. It's just they're gonna have to experience the chaos until they decide to fix it. That's why I agree with the
That's why I'm super excited about DeSantis shipping the Haitians to Martha's Vineyard.
right.
That's one
Yeah, I
of the
mean,
most violent cultures on the planet right now. And so the second they get there, it's going to be a game changer for experiences with immigration.
they need to ship them right to all the politicians' houses,
They
to their
are.
front doors.
That's why they're shipping them to Martha's Vineyard. That's where they live.
Right.
And so, I mean, it might not be directly to their front door, but it's close enough.
Right outside their gated communities.
Yeah. I mean, if you got a Chinese illegal immigrant that's able to sneak on a Camp Pendleton, you can definitely get some in the Martha's Vineyard.
Right.
Which I'm still trying to figure out how that happened, but whatever. Like,
Yeah, it's unbelievable, man. But like, what I'm saying, even regardless of political affiliation, if you can't see like something's really wrong with the policies in the blue states, like what else can we tell you?
they're learning the hard way, as I've said before and will continue to say. They're learning the hard way, and it's only going to get worse for them. It's dramatically worse for them. I mean, I think the worst part about the experience is the fact that people are factually dying now from adverse possession experiences, where squatters are starting to kill the homeowners.
Right. And I heard in Florida, DeSantis passed the anti-squatter
Yeah,
bill.
because of what happened to one of the people impacted in Florida. Same thing that happened to a lady in New York, where her mom
Right.
died and she flew in from Spain to take care of her estate. And then when she got to her place, there were squatters that were inside, illegal immigrant squatters, and they murdered her, stuffed her and her dog in a bag, and left her in that duffel bag for days.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And now New York is passing a law similar to Florida's because of that. But someone factually had to die for them to realize this is a terrible, terrible thing. And I've argued against adverse possession since day one. I think any
Yeah.
theft of property from any owner is nothing but theft. I don't care what your policies or ideas behind it are, or even the fact that they tolerated their neighbor using their property. And
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't understand how squatters have rights. How do you have
they
rights
don't
if
have
you break
rights.
in somebody's
They don't have
property?
rights. Squatters don't have rights, and I don't know why the term squatters' rights came up and became popular because squatters don't have rights. And if you look up policies for rights, squatters don't have rights because there's no landlord-tenant relationship for them to have rights in the first place. And
Exactly.
what you do have is a lot of squatters fabricating leases, but that's what we call fraud.
Yeah, they should be taken to jail. Like, how do you break into
Yeah,
somebody's house and you just get to stay there? Like the
yeah. They should be
homeowner can't
taken
get
to
you
jail.
out.
They're trespassing. They're trespassing on someone's property. It's not your property. The landlord says that you don't have a lease with me, and the lease is invalid because of that. You have to leave. Like, and if you don't, you get escorted. It's just like if you go into a building. That would be like saying I have squatters' rights if I walk into a Walmart.
Right.
I wait for Walmart to close, and I just walk into Walmart and I say I live here now.
Right. It makes no sense. Like,
It's the stupidest idea I've ever heard.
'cause, yeah, I don't know, like,
Maybe
where
that's what
that
I
came.
should do. Maybe I should just move into like the president's house. I'm a squatter. Yeah, I have squatters' rights. Sir, this is the White House. Yeah, I live here now. You're gonna have to leave.
Right. I think I heard of a story where they tried to remove the squatters, and the person who tried to
Got
remove them went to
arrested. Yeah,
jail.
the owner got arrested. You are correct. The owner that was in, if I'm not mistaken, that was in Florida or New York, and the owner got arrested. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
it was in New
insane.
York. It was in New York. I remember now because a vigilante gang showed up and beat the hell out of the trespassers when the third one wouldn't leave because two left and the third one wouldn't leave, and so the vigilantes beat the hell out of them.
Mm.
Yeah,
How did they tie that back to the? Well, I mean, obviously, it's
they
going
did.
to be
The
obvious to home.
vigilantes just showed up. It was just a mob of people that showed up and just beat the hell out of them
Hmm.
because that's the level that people are getting sick and tired of this shit.
Yeah,
It's literally random people are showing up to beat the hell out of random people for showing up at another random owner's house because the police aren't doing their job because they're not allowed to. So people are taking justice into their own hands.
right.
And it's
It's
a
like
very dangerous place to be.
people are creating their own little mini police forces, like
Yeah,
vigilante justice.
they're enforcing their own law. Yes, and the problem with that is police officers, uh, even though they are limited in number and they are not always the best quality, they at least have all gone through a series of trainings that make them, at a minimum bar of standard. They have to go through polygraphs. They have to go through background checks. They all have to pass at least these minimum standards. People in vigilante mob, they don't have to pass any training. They have no policies. There are no background checks. There are no criminal history checks. There's no checks for domestic disputes or domestic violence, like
Right.
aggravated assault charges. These are just people.
Pretty
And
much
it makes it
mob
very,
rule.
yeah, it's mob rule. And that is a very dangerous place for everyone to be because you never know when they might get the wrong person. And if they get the wrong person, that's unfortunate. But that's going to be an outcome at some point. This stuff keeps popping up. It's going to continue to happen. It's going to continue to happen in spades. And if you think it's bad now, just wait till the debt collapse comes. It's going to be
Right.
100 times worse then.
Exactly. Because there will be no official mechanism for law enforcement. Then there.
No, there's no money.
Right.
Police aren't going to work for free. They
Exactly.
barely get paid now. Like if they have to choose between taking care of their families and taking care of you, they're going to pick their own people every time. A
Exactly.
perfect example is what's going on in Ukraine right now. They're struggling to maintain their military force. So is Israel and the Israeli IDF. they're struggling with draft right now because nobody wants to conscript. Nobody
Right.
wants to be involved in these military systems or policing powers of any kind, whether it's military or police. Nobody wants to be involved.
Right.
So it's going to get way worse, man. It's going to get way worse because it's like I was saying before is 2024, 2025, and 2026, 38% of the national debt's going to renew. And that's going to be about $17 trillion worth of debt, typically at 0 to 2%. And it's going to go up to 5, 6, and 7%, which got my compound calculator right here real quick. Let's just find out what that looks like. Quick loan calculator, 30 years on $17 trillion. Doesn't have zeros. 3 sets is million, billion, trillion. There we go. At 7. We'll do 5% on 30 years. That interest payment is, well, the payment is, what is that? $91 billion a month. 91.259.
That's crazy.
Which is times 12. Yeah, that's about $1 trillion a year on top of the 700 more. And 781 billion that we have now. So yeah, that's $1.876 trillion a year in debt service on an income that's 2.8 trillion to 4.4 trillion, depending on who you talk to. So anywhere between, what is that, 60? What is that, 60? Yeah. What is that, 2.8 trillion? Lots of zeros. That's million, billion. Yeah, 67%. Oh, what? It blew up my number, you asshole. 4.3. Yeah. Yeah, it's anywhere between 67 and 43% of the national income, depending on which number. So your DTI in both cases is what is considered catastrophic for most people. That's just your debt service. That's not current operating expenses, and that's your debt service, not including your DTI. So you take costs into consideration just for the top 3, which is another 2.1, and you're looking at, you're already over budget. So, yeah, there's going to be some austerity level changes somewhere around 2026, 24, 25, 26, probably 25, maybe 26 if they can play enough funny money games.
Right. Yeah, it's going to come collapsing down sooner or later.
Yeah, because it's as I've said for the longest time, it's contrary to popular belief. You cannot, in fact, print yourself out of debt. You cannot print yourself into prosperity. You have to deal with your debts. You have to deal with your expenses. And the first things that are going to be cut are going to be military and social programs, Medicare, Medicaid, FHA. There's going to be cuts to DOD, Social Security for sure. It'll probably just be eliminated entirely. Yeah, they'll probably just let it go insolvent.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
Yep. Yep.
There's nothing, I'll get out of the country before it blows up.
I've already got my passports process started, man.
Oh, man. St. Lucia it is, huh?
St. Lucia in Poland.
Like, what's the big benefits of Poland? I haven't heard too much about it.
Oh, my ancestors are Polish, so me getting a Polish passport is too easy. Yeah. Plus, they declared Christ as king, which is pretty awesome.
Right.
Yeah, legally.
So like an official Christian state.
They are an official a Christian country. Yes.
Okay, yeah, country, not state. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm
yeah,
100% for it.
yeah. I mean, that's pretty amazing, in this world because like you can make your country anything but Christianity, and otherwise it's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. You can run your country like the whores of Babylon and nobody bats an eye.
And yeah, it's pretty much in alignment with the Bible. America is going to be under judgment soon. Like you heard
Oh,
what is
yeah.
that? Easter was
Yeah.
the 31st, and they also declared that like the
Yeah.
transgender
Trans
day
holiday.
of
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It was a direct insult to Christians. It was done specifically to antagonize Christians. And why they're doing that, I don't know. But it's a very stupid thing to do. Even from a political perspective, it's a terrible move. Because I'm like, transgender and the LGBTQ community collectively, as a statistical basis, is a minority population.
right,
The trans community is like, I think it's less than 1% of the population, and you're antagonizing 85% of the population by doing so. And I'm just
right.
like, this is the antithesis of stupid.
And I'm sure those individuals don't even want like their day to
Sorry.
be on that day because they kind of they prefer to fly under the radar than to be in an antagonistic situation.
Yeah, like they're openly saying like I don't want to be reelected, and I'm just like, I mean, cool. That's your choice. I mean, yeah. Missouri's creating an income tax free zone for companies, and you're like, let's piss off the entire planet. Like,
I kind of feel like that's why I feel like the secession is almost guaranteed because people are kind of they're feeling like there's a complete disconnect between
well, they're actively waging war against religious persons, whether it's the Hasidic Jews or somebody like the Muslim populations or somebody like the Christians. They're just antagonizing everybody. And it's just like, you do realize that we have more money and guns per capita than anybody else.
right,
Like, this is not a good decision. Like, there are far more religious peoples in the world under the Abrahamic faiths and religions than any other population group in aggregate. There
right.
are, in simple terms, far more of us than there are of you. And I'm just like, if it came down to it and I had to choose between fighting atheists or fighting like Muslims, at least they have a religious structure they believe
Right,
in. They answer to a higher power to some extent.
right,
And so,
right.
yeah. Yeah, gun to my head, I'm nuking the atheists.
And I think what they're doing with this move too is, people who normally would have said, "Hey, I'm gonna just not vote." They're actively going to push them to
Yeah, they're
vote for the other
actively
side.
going. You're instigating them to vote, and that's highly problematic, especially for the Liberal Party, because you're antagonizing a huge percentage population that is completely disengaged and disinterested, and now you've actively antagonized them, and so it's like, okay, cool, now they're all going to vote.
Yeah, like I really don't understand like what's going on in their strategy meetings. Like, what are you attempting to accomplish? Like,
Pandering.
hmm,
Pandering to a very small percentage basis because they, for some reason, think that there's going to be some kind of positive impact. And it's just continually reflecting the complete opposite. I mean, look at the financial losses that Disney suffered. Look at the financial
right,
losses that Netflix suffered. Look at the financial losses that Nike suffered. Like, contrary to popular belief, their stock prices reflect everything you need to know. They've fallen through the floor. And
right.
it's just, you're going to learn your lesson the hard way, one way or another. And it's just like with unions. There is no positive outcome with the union. Like, there's never going to be a positive outcome to a union. You're intentionally increasing duress on a business and dramatically increasing the expenses on the business. The only viability for that business to be able to survive is to be competitive, and you're becoming the antithesis of competition through unions. And what you're going to do is end up destroying your own job, and then
Right.
you're not going to have a job, and you're just going to be out of a job. And then because you are at the other company, every employer is never going to hire you, because that would be the first thing that I would say is any person that was in a union at a company that failed because of the union, I would blackball them and never hire them. Ever.
Mm.
Ever. And that's because the decisions that the employees made directly contributed to the failure of the company. And so I see you for what you are, which is a liability and a risk. You have every right to unionize. Absolutely. And I have every right to decide who I will and won't hire.
I think we're pretty much at a point in society where we can no longer pretend like policies that don't work. We can't pretend they work.
Yeah, you can't keep sticking your head in the sand and expecting positive outcomes. It's just like we were talking a couple of episodes back when I said that they're increasing the minimum wage to fast food franchises in California, and that's going to go into effect soon. Well, it's gone into effect, and the first responses to the franchises, like McDonald's, was to lay people off.
Right.
That was their immediate response: was automations, AI, and lay people off, and they just killed the jobs permanently.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. But
Yeah. And the other thing that I try to get people to understand is just because, and this is such an idiotic stance. Oh, well, it's minimum wage. It's going to drive all the other wages up. No, it's not. No, it
mm,
is not. Your job is based directly on your capacity to produce value, regardless of what your job title is. For the audience abroad. Secondly, your job's value in terms of compensation is directly relative to what you can bring to bear to market. If market's not willing to pay you $1,000 an hour, you're not going to make $1,000 an hour or even a percentage basis of that.
right.
If your mark to market is $100 aggregate value, you'll be lucky if you make between 10 and 30% of that. So $10 to $30 an hour. You don't make $100 an hour at fast food because the margins are about 5%. So that means if you create $1,000 worth of sales in an hour, you're only making the business $50 an hour,
Right.
which means your value to that company is 10 to 30% of $50, or roughly, oh, this is going to be a shocker to people, $8 to $12 an hour.
Right.
Maybe 15, but that's before taxes. So about 8 to 12, because at 1.4x, you're at about 15. And that's the aggregate cost, including all the taxes they have to pay on your behalf. So yes, 8 to 12 was what you were worth. Now you're charging 20. You passed 1067. They're hiring robots and self-checkout. You're at 20. So you're well beyond the threshold. So don't be surprised when they cut hours, cut jobs, cut roles, and compress roles. And so now you have to work twice as hard for slightly more money if you have a job at all. And your
Right.
hours will be cut.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, all the other salaries aren't going up, but it's going to cause the prices of meals and all of this other stuff to go up. So
Yeah,
society's
because their
getting poor.
market is relative to their value. If my nurse is providing me a value as we'll say a doctor, I'm a doctor, and my nurse produces me $100 an hour in gross aggregate, I'm going to pay her 10 to 30% of that. So she's going to make between $10 and $30 an hour, which is what nurses make. And so if the cost of a burger goes up and they're paying $20 an hour, the nurse can say, well, I can just go become a burger flipper. And I'm like, okay, cool.
Right.
It
Yeah,
doesn't change
man.
my numbers. It doesn't impact my wages. It doesn't impact my income. So why would you get more pay for me just because the market will bear you at somewhere else? You have to remember the statement we just said. They're cutting people's roles. This is the opposite effect of what your delusion is. There are less of those jobs, significantly less of those jobs, and the hours are cut. So sure, maybe if you did go and get a job at Chick-fil-A because it's a franchise and it falls under that model, yeah, sure, maybe you could get paid $20 an hour. But $20 an hour for how many hours? 30? That's $600 a week. If you're a nurse, you're making $10 an hour, working 60 hours. You're getting 60 hours already.
Right.
Now, let's say that you go up to $15 an hour. You're still working 60. Guess what? You're making more money as a nurse, $750 versus $600 flipping burgers. Your take home will go down. And if it goes up to 20, well, guess what? Now you're definitely making a lot more than them. You're making double.
Right.
But hey, you want to be a burger flipper instead of a nurse. 20 does not equal 20.
Right.
What do I know? Go
Man,
around and find out. Be my guest.
I mean, I guess it's interesting this year. It seems like this is where we start to bear the fruit of all these policies. We
Yep.
get to
The fruit of your follies.
can't hide from it anymore.
Yep. My favorite saying is lay in the bed in which you've made.
Exactly, and that's the only way. The only way to get better. Like you have to experience the results of your actions.
Yep. I think all I'm going to do is have two things copy pasted. It's lay in the bed in which you've made, and please, sir, may I have another? Because the beatings will continue, and morale will not improve.
Like I don't even see like how the U.S. really carries forward as a nation. It's like we're in so much debt. The politics is so crazy. It's like
Everything gets nerfed. It's just the simplest way to put it. So if you want to know how it plays out, it's pretty simple. The debt collapse comes, hyperinflation. That's just a given. Because once they announce that they're defaulting, hyperinflation is
right.
It's going to be next day. It's going to be literally next day.
Mm.
Global market response next day. We've already defaulted. If you remember with Russian payments, we've discussed this already. But once we start defaulting on the other countries like China, and then everyone else, that's the next day. And even then, it's like, okay, cool. Yeah, you didn't default on us, but you defaulted on your own. Same thing. Next day.
Right.
It's like you can't even afford to pay your own people back. And that's worse as far as the world is concerned. It's like you're literally cutting the benefits to your elderly because you can no longer afford to pay them, even though they've paid in the entire time. You've defaulted. Next day. Like, and so it's coming. And everyone and their mom sees it. That's why even Poland is stockpiling gold. Everyone is moving away from the US dollar as fast as humanly possible.
Right.
Because they know it's coming. They all know it's coming. I know it's coming. I'm stockpiling gold and silver.
Yeah, all of our rich know, they're getting out of here. They're taking all of these
on islands that no one can get to.
Right.
Well, it's not fair. A couple people can get to, but most people don't have the vessels with the capacities to sail to Hawaii.
Right.
Which is why they're going to Hawaii, by the way.
Right, exactly.
It is geographically one of the, aside from Point Nemo, it is one of the most isolated points in the world, relatively speaking, in terms of large land masses. Like Hawaii is the furthest away from most places. Like it takes substantial engineering to be able to reach Hawaii.
Right.
But yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, I mean, you're going to get what you get, and it's going to be great.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, nobody can say, well, you're just being negative. Just focus on the bottom. Like, you can't.
No, this isn't a negativity issue. This is a math problem.
Right.
It has been for a long time, going back to about 2010. It's been a math problem, and I've been talking about it for about 15 years now. Publicly. Like before that, I was talking about it in places like high school. It's like 2006, 2007, 2008. But yeah, I've been tracking this issue for about almost 20 years now. So
Right.
I mean, it is what it is.
And you just simply like, we talk about just watch what the money's doing, and it's
Yeah.
not
Watch where the
hunkering
smart
down here.
money is. And the smart money is all doing the same thing. They're pulling out of the stock market. They're liquidating all their assets. They're moving to cash positions. They're getting ready for a buy move. And they're getting ready for a positioned move. And the only reason to do that and to go hard into the paint on liquidity is that there's going to be a major liquidity crisis that you can capitalize on, or B, a massive selling off of assets that you can buy at a substantially greater discount.
Right.
And in both cases, it's better to be in that position. And the alternative is they're moving it into other positions that are decentralized and desensitized to the U.S. dollar. And that would be things like silver and gold.
Yeah, they know the collapse is coming, and then the fire sale. Once everything's collapsed, you buy all the assets up for cheap.
Yeah. Well, they're talking that Russia is about to declare effectively a pairing with gold. China and the BRIC system is, and if they do that, it's gonna cause the cost of gold to skyrocket.
Mm.
And that's just a simple reality. It's just like when I think it was the Bretton Woods Act, if I'm not mistaken, for gold. When we used to be paired with gold, we were a gold-based currency, and then we went full on fiat.
Yeah, yeah, we used to be on the gold standard. I mean, they took us out, and then now we have what we have now.
Yeah, our money is intrinsically worthless, and it has been for a long time. It's like I said in previous videos, 150 a year, we're down 99%, something like that, 97, 99%.
Right, and there's a historical precedence that when you do stuff like this, that hyperinflation is the result.
Yeah, anytime that you decouple it from any kind of tangible, you effectively create an instance where you're going to at some point indefinitely print your money into worthlessness.
Right.
And it's sad, but it's the reality of it is your house is not going up in value. Your house is not going up in value. Your land is not worth more. It's that inflation is simply increasing the cost to buy the same land. It's not that your land is worth more. It's that your money is worth less.
Right.
Now, your house is also depreciating, but that's from natural wear and tear, from cost of replacement. But your land, which is what the actual value is tied to, it's going up in cost because it's simply going up in cost. That's why the same amount of gold back in the 1900s to buy land is the same amount of gold to buy land now. It's not that gold has changed. Gold hasn't changed. And it's not that land has changed. It's a goat equals a dollar. And it's just that there are more dollars. That's all it is.
Yeah, when you can just print dollars out the thin air, obviously it's going to be
worthless. It's monopoly money.
Right. But anytime there's a problem, hey, let's print some more money. And
you can't print your way into prosperity. It's just like the Romans when they were shaving off pieces of gold and silver and reducing the amount of gold and silver in their currency. They were deflating their currency by reducing the amount of precious metal per coin. That's what destroyed their currency. They were still physical tangibles.
Because, the pie is not getting bigger. You just produce some more claims on that already existing pie.
Yeah. Yeah, and then that's the issue is you have either in that instance less gold or silver for the same coin, and you're saying that one coin is still worth the same amount of goats, or it's that you have so many gold coins that they become. It's like what happened with Mansa Manu when he went into Egypt. Is he flooded Egypt with gold, so much gold that it became worthless. Like he factually bankrupted Egypt with the amount of. I mean, that's kind of baller. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, you have so much money that you literally made money worthless. Like,
that's crazy.
that's top G move right there. Yeah, you bankrupted a country's currency. You have so much of it. Like, but that's the same thing China's doing. They've stockpiled our money for a long time.
Right.
Yeah, and they could bankrupt us at any moment, and they know it. And it's what I've been saying is China's not going to have to fire a missile at us. They're just going to spend our money.
Right. I've looked at their cities, and their cities look way beyond ours.
Mm.
A lot of them, not all of them,
I mean,
but
this is the same people that paint their grass green to make it look nice. Like, I wouldn't buy into the looks. What I would say is look at their books. And when I say look at their books, I mean all three. The books that they show to the bankers, the books that they show to their wives, and the books they show to their government.
right. Well, like,
So,
yeah, like America's a fundamentally weak nation. We just become like a nation of managers who think we can outsource everything, to
we
the
can.
rest of the world.
We can.
Well, we can, but as sooner or later, you're gonna have to pay for it because you don't have any skills, domestic skills, and once they gain all the knowledge from directly producing the stuff, they're just gonna, get rid of the management, American management layer, and have it
Yeah.
themselves.
Why would they shave 40% off the top when they can keep that for themselves?
Exactly.
I mean, it's not doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that one.
And
I mean,
it
same
takes
with
like
manufacturing.
right. We can't just put up manufacturing plants, overnight, and then okay, people have the skills to do what needs to be
Build these
done.
machines, first of all. Like, it takes an astronomical amount of skill to be able to build the machines. This is
Right.
something that I try to get people to understand from an engineering perspective. You do not simply build a factory. That is an extremely complex machine.
Right.
It's a machine of machines. It's a system of systems that in aggregate make the factory. Like, I openly encourage people to play Factoria. It is the best way for you to realize how insignificant you are as a human being. Because once you start building truly complex machines, you realize just how sophisticated a factory is.
Right. Yeah,
Like, when you like just the signaling mechanism in those games by itself is a mind-shattering amount of engineering.
right.
And once you get just signaling down, just the signaling, that's just the factory communicating with itself. Like, on a basic level, go, no-go signals.
Right.
Like,
And what's crazy, that's just like a stripped down simulation of reality. And if it's that difficult in the game,
yeah, imagine what it's like in real life when you have to build those parts,
right.
maintain those parts, actively integrate those parts, and then build control systems to monitor those parts from a centralized control system. Like, it's an extremely complex thing. And then imagine what happens when those parts get extremely small. When you start talking the centimeter, the millimeter, the nanometer sizes. Like, you start talking microchips. Like, these are extremely sophisticated processes already, and you're making it dramatically more significantly harder by making it significantly smaller.
Right.
But that's the effort that goes into making these things. And these are basic. This is something as basic as one of these. This is just a $1,000 piece of shit compared to some of these, $4 million devices that we make, like medical equipment. Like, cell phones, piece of shit compared to that.
Right.
Like, and you have to have factories to make those things. Factories, plural. Like, imagine
Exactly.
how outrageously difficult that's going to be to move back. And you have to have the engineering staff not only to build those, but then also to maintain them.
Right. Like the minute we moved our manufacturing
That was
overseas,
suicide.
yep. That's
Economic suicide.
it was inevitable that we lose our dominion.
Well, the thing is, too, is once you send the jobs over there, the infrastructure around those factories gets built up. That infrastructure is what produces jobs. It's not the factory. It's the infrastructure. The infrastructure supports the factory.
Right.
It's the infrastructure that's important. And we haven't modified our infrastructure since, like, between 1910s and 1960s, depending on where you look.
Right.
So,
And that affects the military too. Like, how are we
it affects
gonna?
everything. Yeah.
Exactly.
Like we have military superiority because we have the financial means, because we have the powerful currency. But
Right.
our currency is what props up our military. I guarantee you, the second you start to tell entire vessels full of sailors that they're no longer going to get paid, watch how quickly that your aircraft carrier turns into an airsoft gun,
Right.
because it's about as useful as that cargo ship that just smashed into a pylon.
Right. And we already see the currencies on his ropes. I mean, bricks and just
Yeah.
the debt we're in.
Yeah, and it's like I said, Russia's moving and has been moving very quickly to stockpiling more and more and more gold. And they're only going to continue to stockpile more and more and more gold. And once they flip the switch, they're just going to annihilate our currency by simply just pairing with their currency to the gold standard.
Right.
And what's going to happen is it's going to bankrupt our currency relative to theirs. And their dollar becomes infinitely stronger than ours does.
Right.
Yeah. And
Like
then they can just outspend us.
right. And it's crazy, but no other nation like operates how we've been operating in the
No.
past, you know.
Well, that's not true. Other nations have done exactly what we've done.
Yeah, they kind of having a
Key word
similar.
is have done, because they
Yeah.
no longer exist, or they no longer exist as anything other than a shell of their former selves.
Right.
Rome is a perfect example. France is a perfect example. The UK is a perfect example. Germany is a perfect example. Um, I mean, the Vatican. I mean, literally the only reason why they're still in business is because of Mother Teresa's substantial contributions from her will. Um, I mean, Australia
Didn't
technically, but
didn't Rome like in his dying days it started bringing in like a mercenary, hiring mercenaries to fill the
yeah,
army.
yeah, because they were running into issues being able to get soldiers because of cultural problems.
Right, and that's pretty much what's happening now.
Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, this is the consequences of the culture that you create. It's, as they say, strong men make good times, good times make weak men make bad times make strong men, and we are very much so at the end of that cycle.
Right,
So it's the bad times aren't here yet. As I continue to tell people, is a per this is very important to understand. The hyperinflation that we have experienced over the past year, it was a fraction of what we are about to experience,
right,
because that was only, I think, 8 to 12% of the debt. We are about to see 3 to 5 times that refresh. So if you thought that 300% increase in the price of cocoa in the past 90 days was bad, just wait.
right.
Just wait. By the way, cocoa's over $10,000.
Mm.
Kind of sucks because my hot chocolate's about to get a lot more expensive.
Yeah, it's all it's coming, man. Everything's right down the pipeline.
Yep. So I've got to go over to Costco and buy my hot cocoa before that bitch doubles in price.
Right, you better stock up on everything.
Nah, that's gonna suck. But yeah, it's like I said, man, get ready. The party's about to start.
And you know, at least now people are finally waking up. They can't, you know, they can't hide it anymore. It's everything we've been talking about. You're
Yeah,
gonna see, you're seeing it already. You're tasting a bit of it.
yeah. Well, and this is the bad part about it, and this is the part about this part of the story that I don't like, because it's unfortunate. It's gonna be little by little, and then all at once.
Hmm.
And we are at the little by little, the end of the little by little phase, about to hit the all at once phase.
That's the sad thing that people think that this is us going through the hard times. It's not.
This is not the hard times, brother. This ain't even the fucking warm up. We haven't even started the speed bag to this ass beating that we're gonna get for this 56 round boxing match. Like, we have more debt as a country than the world has money. and assets in aggregate. This is going to be the precedence set. This is going to be a story that is taught in all history books for all time. This is going to be the greatest fall from grace and power that has ever been recorded. It will make the fall of Egypt look like the fall of the mason jar from the counter.
Right.
Like, it is going to be so catastrophically bad.
Yeah,
Like,
man,
you're
get out
talking,
while you can. You see the writing on the wall is like, all right, I'm gonna wait,
yeah,
I'm gonna sit here and wait till it collapses. Then I'm gonna go. It's too late then.
yeah, it's too late. Like, don't be surprised if there's guards at the gates with guns stopping you from leaving so they can seize all your assets. Level bad. Do
Exactly.
not be surprised. There's a reason why they're trying to force the CBDC onto everybody right
Right.
before all this happens. That's why they're priming for it now. Because with a CBDC in place, they have the capacity to centrally seize all bank funds from all banks.
Hmm.
And that's why, one, I highly recommend you move your primary banking source to a credit union, which isn't tied into the treasury system because it legally can't. And two, I highly recommend that you diversify your ongoing cash on hands to anything but cash. Like, you have your minimum emergency fund, and that is about it.
Right.
Your operating capital and your minimum emergency fund, and that's about it.
Right.
Yeah, because shit's gonna hit the fan, and it's gonna be ugly, like really ugly.
Yeah. It's pretty much what all the so-called doom and gloomers have been saying. Like at some point you have to pay the piper.
Yeah, at some point you have to pay what you owe, and it's you can kick the can and kick the can and get creative about kicking the can, but you can only kick the can so many times, my guy. I mean, we're at a point to where we're generating $1 trillion of debt per 100 days.
Right.
That is a snowball that will only compound, and it will compound quickly. I mean, me
Exactly.
personally, I think the liberals are intentionally trying to collapse the currency, in my
Yeah.
personal opinion.
It seems like they're trying to intentionally collapse the nation, like
Yeah.
letting crime go, open borders.
Yeah. Like, I honestly think they're actively trying to destroy the country. And that's probably directly because of the fact that the majority of their sources come from funding from places like Soros, who financially stands to benefit immensely from the collapse of the US dollar because he's bet against the dollar, and he has positions against the dollar, and he has financial stakes against the dollar, and he has a history of betting against currencies and manipulating them to collapse to make his money. And
Right.
so that's what he does for a living, is he destroys countries so he can profit from their failure.
Right.
Like, even if it's a prosperous country, he doesn't care. He'll destroy it so that he can profit. Like, that is the ultimate parasite. And then, which is, honestly, I'm surprised he hasn't been assassinated yet, because it's not
Yeah,
like
that's what I'm saying. Like nobody came after him, and he's doing this.
I was like, I'm surprised the UK government didn't kill him. Like,
Mm.
the amount of financial damage he did to the government and everybody that was tied to it, I'm surprised they didn't kill him. Like, straight up. Like, they've killed people for a lot less in the past.
Right.
Like,
I kind of feel like they want to collapse America so they can move to that world government.
well, they think that's what they're going to move to, and that's the delusion. And this is what I continue to try to get people to understand. The World Economic Forum is smoking crack. If the US system collapses, it will take the entire global economic system with it.
Right.
Everything will collapse. Factually, everything will fail. There won't be billionaires anymore. They'll all be broke. And they definitely won't have a say anymore, because it's their money that buys them information. It's their money that buys them power. It's their money that buys them influence. Money won't have any value anymore. If the US
Right.
dollar collapses, a lot of governments are intertwined with our economic infrastructure, and a lot of people's retirement money is sunk into our markets.
Right.
If you destroy the US stock market, you destroy the entire world's financial system. There is
Right.
no winner in that game. That is a fool's errand.
it ties pretty much into Revelation in the Bible with Mystery Babylon. Like it's destroyed in a day, and the whole world is crying. That they say the city, but pretty much a nation of merchants is destroyed, and like you say,
Yeah,
it's going to affect the world. And what does it matter if you're in power or whatever? If you're ruling over a bunch of like lunatics who are ready to kill because they have nothing else.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
It's I liken it to ruling over a garden of bones.
right.
Like, sure, you're king, but king of what?
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's again, it's the consequences of the Lonely Island, and it's a fool's errand. The whole thing's a fool's errand, and there are no winners in this game. Soros thinks he's going to make off like a bandit from playing the market. Well, here's the problem with the market. This is the delusion with the market. The market is tied into guess which exchange?
Right. American and New York Stock Exchange, etc.
Yeah. What do you think happens when the market goes tits up?
Right. And it blows up, and
So
once
do all of your positions.
exactly, and once it's if he's sitting on like a bunch of food, water, etc., the mob's coming after him, once it turns into that.
Yeah, that's why they're all going to Hawaii, because they all see the writing on the wall. That's why
Right.
they've all liquidated their positions.
Right. They think they can just like go hide out underground.
Yeah, they're transferring it into cash and tangibles to
Right.
re-enter in case things don't go as bad as they expect, and tangibles so that they have infrastructure and real property.
Exactly. Yes. If you have a bunch of food, water, guns, gold,
Yeah,
etc.
things of actual value, because again, it's when money becomes worthless, what is left is things of real value. It's
Right.
commodities. Commodities become the go-to in true collapse. No, I'm not talking like collapse. I'm talking like factual collapse. Commodities and not gold and silver are what have value. Now you can still use gold and silver to barter with
Right.
people who have commodities, but that's between civilized groups who have commodities. What about the ones who don't?
Right.
What do you
Yeah.
think gold's going to do for them? And that's why a lot of the anti-golders have the common sense to realize, yes, in a totally destroyed economy, gold and silver are money. You are correct. But what good is money between people who have nothing to trade?
Right. Yeah. People are starving. They don't care about gold. They want
They don't
food.
care
They
how
want
much gold
water.
you have. They want to eat that goat that's sitting over there.
Right. They might just eat you if they get hungry enough.
Exactly. Cannibalism has happened before. Ask Napoleon how that went.
Right.
And every U.S. military in the wintertime. Old Bob over at 5th Infantry Unit, he looks kind of tasty. Man looks like he'd be at least 3 meals.
And it is crazy that these people, they don't really realize what they're steering not only us but themselves into. But
Yeah. And they think it's a good idea. I think that's the funniest part. It's kind of like smart cars or EVs. They sound great on paper until you realize that nobody wants to buy a $68,000 car that can only travel 150 miles before it needs a 12-hour break to recharge.
right. And where are we getting all the power for
Yeah,
all the
where's the
cars?
power going to come from? That requires infrastructure, which requires fossil fuels to build.
Right.
Which this is the ultimate irony. Like, nothing makes me smile more than seeing a tow truck with a charger on it that's gas powered, plugged into a Tesla, and I just
Right.
sit there laughing. Or the ones that just finally got smart and they just rigged up a support bracket and then attached a generator to it, and then just plugged the Tesla car into the generator.
Right.
Yeah, they refuel the generator when they want to recharge their car,
Mm.
which just completely defeats the purpose of the smart car.
Right. Yeah, to me, the electric cars have always been about control. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the idea is you'll do what they want because they said so, because they think that they know best, and they don't. And
Right.
this economic situation is a perfect example of what they thought they would know best, and they absolutely don't. Because here's the first thing that I warn politicians about, and they can listen or they cannot. I don't care. It's their heads, not mine. The problem with being a politician during a major economic collapse is there is no police force.
Right.
There is no military force. But what there is depending on your population size, between tens to hundreds of millions of extremely angry, disgruntled, and disheveled personnel
Right.
that are actively looking for someone to blame and take their anger out on, their frustrations and their pain, because they're hungry. They're factually hungry because they're starving.
Right.
And
You
the
know.
person they're always going to blame is the politicians because they are to blame. So what do you
Right.
think is going to happen? And do you really think your security team is ready to take on hundreds of millions of people?
Right.
Like, do you? I want to meet a politician, like one day, and ask them that as like a. I mean, I've met plenty, but I've never asked them that question. I mean, it's kind of hard to like. You ever thought about someone just murdering you, like
Right.
doing something really stupid? Like this is definitely in that realm of dumb enough to get murdered for, and it's just like there's only what 500 600 congressmen and senators aggregate, and there's 330 to 390 million people in the US depending on who you ask.
Yeah.
Like I don't think you have enough bullets to protect yourself from that.
They've been in kind of the golden age of politics where people just
Yeah.
quote unquote write the politicians. Like it's not like other countries where you have mobs of people with
Yeah.
guns,
Well,
knives.
they think they're going to stay civilized, and that's the issue. Is you haven't. The reason why we stay civilized in protests for the most part is because we're not severely impacted. We're impacted, but never severely. I mean, it's like even look at the recent BLM riots; those were relatively tame compared to actual riots. I mean, they didn't even destroy half of a city. I mean, it's kind of lame, honestly. They damaged a couple buildings on a couple blocks. Like, and that was just because one person was impacted, or maybe two or three. When you start talking, everyone's negatively impacted. When you've got someone who's literally holding their child for the last moments of its life because it's starving to death in their arms, I mean, you're talking about a serious response. Like, that's what we're going to be. I don't know if people seem to understand that or not, but your baby won't survive without breast milk or formula. And a lot of women, they don't produce enough breast milk to feed their child appropriately because you have so many chemicals in your food supply that negatively impact their body to where they don't produce enough breast milk to what they naturally would otherwise. And you combine those two factors in aggregate, you're going to starve babies to death. They'll die in your arms. They will literally die in your arms, factually. And when that starts to happen, that's when the shit's gonna hit the fan. You remember what during COVID when there was that massive panic and mass rationing of formula?
Right.
Yeah, that was why. Because people were starting to notice that their babies were becoming malnourished because they weren't getting enough nutrients because there wasn't enough formula. They were
Right.
diluting their formula to be able to feed their children. And while that sounds great in theory, because you gave them a full bottle versus a full bottle, that powder has calories. And if you cut that in half, you cut the calories in half.
Right. And you know the thing about COVID, it was like a synthetic shortage, and people
It
were
was a
acting crazy.
synthetic shortage. Correct. Yeah. Now imagine a real one. It's going to be wild, man. It's going to be wild. Like, I don't even know how to describe what it's going to be like. Other than I hope you have a tall enough wall. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like we're gonna see like what a lot of these the quote unquote third world countries have been going through that we only experience on TV.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I want to see a barbecue level like experience. It's gonna be in at least Detroit, New York, and places like that. At least one of them. Florida for sure, because I mean it's Florida. Have you heard about barbecue?
Yeah, I know he's that
Yeah,
Haitian gang leader.
yeah. That he cooks people like
Yeah, I've heard
literally,
about him. Like,
then eats them. It's kind of wild, man.
people have no idea of the kind of stuff that actually goes on in desperate places.
Situations. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. They haven't seen in they haven't. Americans have never seen instability. They
right,
don't know what that looks like. They haven't experienced it. And that's the funny part is like you've had all this time, your entire collective life, to actually learn about the world around you, and you've done nothing. You've had all this
right,
time and all this money and all these resources to go out and aggregate information and knowledge on a variety of skill sets, including survival, and you haven't. And now we're almost at that point. We are factually almost at that point, mathematically speaking, because it's like I don't know if they've. Have you seen the articles about the new rates and what's going to happen with the new rates and the expectations?
no, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, because word is that the new emergency hikes, followed by the emergency cuts that are coming, is going to leave like 6 banks standing.
Wow.
Now, me personally, to an extent, I'll bite. All right, cool. Maybe not 6, maybe 50 to 100, and then like a couple dozen mainstream regionals. But like, yeah, I could see a major bank apocalypse simply because of the fact that they weren't doing well to begin with, and mostly because of the commercial real estate exposures, which is actually the ultimate irony, which is the commercial real. Then this is actually kind of funny, which is people want to stay work from home because they do not want to return to the office. And it is that failure to return to the office that is going to cause one of the largest bank failures that have ever been recorded in history. And that large bank failure is going to make houses completely unaffordable to the point where they can't work from home.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Because the cost per square footage is going to be too high.
Yeah, but
They won't be able to afford the extra room. That's irony right there. Oh man. But yeah, that's coming. The defaults has actually already gone up. I think the last time I checked it, it was I think it was 300 or 400% in the past year,
Hmm.
and it's expected to rise even further. And so, yeah, yeah. Typically, I would say invest in commercial real estate, but yeah, no, don't do that. Not yet. Not until it hits bottom.
Right. Like nobody has money to buy a house, like
Yeah,
the
yeah. That's
jobs
the
aren't stable enough.
yeah. And then I think credit card debt right now is at 2 trillion.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, once people run out of credit, that's really when it's gonna.
yeah. That's when it's really going to hit the fan because the whole system's going to lock up. And the problem with that is whether it locks up at 7% or it locks up at 3%, it doesn't matter. Well, once the system is locked up, the system is locked up. And the issue is it takes too long to dig yourself out of credit card debt without defaulting. And that's assuming no change. And the problem with that is that too many people have been too reliant on credit debt um, for too long in regards to being able to effectively live well beyond their means. Auto sales are at an all-time low. And a video I saw recently, which I haven't had a chance to validate yet, was I think it was last month, the month before last, Ford didn't sell a single truck. Now, whether that's true or not, I mean that's hard to believe, but I mean I could see that happening potentially, depending on what kind of truck. Um, Simply because of the cost of trucks and nobody buying out of fear of costs.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know, man.
We're
I
getting
don't
in
know.
the place to where there's no more escape valves. Like we've used up all of our
Yeah,
get out
there's
of
no more
jail free
levers.
cards.
Yeah, there's no more levers. There's no more fancy things. And the biggest thing is the people. And this is again one of the ultimate ironies. The people that we would need most to bail us out of the problem that we currently find ourselves in. One, we pissed off by supporting the British against them. One, we're literally at war with them. One, we're about to be at war with them. The other one, we factually nuked twice.
Hmm.
So, like, everybody that we could possibly need to help us that has any real chance of helping us factually hates us.
Right.
And it just guarantees that we're screwed.
And I also feel all the people domestically who would be able to rebuild the nation, they're planning on getting out of here.
Yeah, man. We're headed for the door. We're done. Like,
Well, yeah, why stay? Like what you see the Titanic is about to slam into a glacier, and you already see the lifeboat there. Are you going to wait until the ship starts sinking before
no,
you jump in the lifeboat? Are you going to get out now? And
no, man. We never got on the boat. We never got on the
right,
boat the second they called it unsinkable.
right, exactly,
The arrogance to ever believe that you're unsinkable guarantees that you will be sunk.
exactly.
Yep. It all but guarantees you'll be sunk.
And
Which,
that's for
funny enough, is exactly why the Titanic sunk in the first place. Was because
right,
they believed it to be unsinkable. Therefore, they didn't build the bulkheads to reach all the way to the ceiling, which is why the Titanic sank. Because every time a bulkhead sank, it flooded the chamber, which allowed the water to flood over the bulkhead into the next chamber, which caused the ship to tip like this and like this and like this and like this and like this until it finally just went straight down. It just
hmm,
the whole ship snapped in half, boom, gone.
right,
Yeah. And that's why the ship sank, was because it kept rocking and flooding over the bulkheads. Had they simply built the bulkheads all the way to the ceiling and completely enclosed each chamber, they never would have sank. It would have damaged the ship and flooded part of it, absolutely. But the vessel would have remained buoyant. The amount of
right.
damage in the area that it was done to, it wouldn't have sank the whole vessel as long as they kept the airlocks tight.
And I think a lot of us kind of grew up in a golden age where America looked invincible, but we still think we're that, but that's all but
Well, I knew
gone.
we weren't invincible. Rome thought the same thing. Egypt thought the
Right,
same thing. France and the UK thought the same thing. We have this is why history is so important. Is we have like so many countries and so many cities to look back on and ask what happened. And Anthropoly is a perfect example. Do you know what Anthropoly is?
no, not sure about that one.
Nobody does, and it's so fucking disappointing.
Yeah, what is that?
It's the center of the world's currency. It was
Hmm.
the very first place where money was made.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'll send it to you later. But yeah, it was here, I'll pull it up actually. I keep a copy of it in here to keep myself humble. And I know it's shocking for most people. I have daily reminders to keep myself humble as I
and
compile more and more information about the world around me.
and it's sad that like we have unlimited access to information, but history always repeats itself.
It always repeats itself. It always repeats itself. Yeah, it's right here. It's yeah, Anatolia. Sorry, it's Anatolia. I'm thinking of another place.
Okay, yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, here. I'll give it to you.
So, but you know what the sad thing is, you could have the history, but if people don't believe it, if they think they're exempt from the pattern repeating, then it's going to repeat.
Yeah. But yeah, it was the seat of the world in Asia near Turkey, and it was the world's seat for coined currency. It was literally the birthplace of minted coinage.
Hmm.
Yep. And that was for Mesopotamia.
Okay.
Yep. Going all the way back. And then Greek and Roman periods. And then it's, a place nobody even knows where it's at on the map if you ask them.
Right.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's just a simple reality. Hang on.
And all of the great empires, like near the end of its life cycle, they have a similar pattern.
Yeah. Yeah. Every single empire, if you look at them and you look at them historically from their performance and behavioral perspectives, they all have the same characteristics. They all have the same behavioral patterns. They all have the same cultural issues. They all have the same crime issues. They all have the same behavioral issues, debauchery issues. I mean, it's literally a copy paste from that time frame. If I could put it from like a perspective of multiple human characteristics and assign each of them a weighted value, I guarantee you the charts would look almost identical if I adjusted for populations. And it's actually kind of depressing how blatantly obvious the issue is. And it always boils down to a handful of characteristics falling off the wayside and then the whole place collapsing. Accountability is one of them, by the way. Yep. Accountability and self-discipline. Those two fall off the bandwagon, you're guaranteed to have a collapse of a society.
And the sad thing is when you have like kind of a system like ours, politicians are incentivized to make people non-accountable so they can keep on getting the votes. Like here,
Yeah.
if, you know,
Yeah. That's why I've said for the longest times, democracies never work.
right,
And they never work for the same reason. And no one likes to hear that. But the first question I always ask them is, if I take an 18-year-old who works at Starbucks and I take the CEO of Starbucks and I stick them in the same room, you're going to tell me that the person who works at the register, who has less years of life than the CEO of Starbucks has years of experience in business, is going to have the exact same say over what the Starbucks business can and cannot do as a company,
right,
and will understand that impact at an equal level.
right. Yeah, whoever knows how to manipulate the masses the best is who starts to win, and that doesn't necessitate towards a
Yeah.
good society.
It's popularity contests in high school is what a democracy is in simplest terms. It's a popularity contest in high school. And when was the last time that you saw that the high school jock and the head cheerleader from the football team and the sports squads were the smartest people in the room?
Right.
Almost never.
Like the only way this would work is if everybody was magically like highly educated.
Yeah. Yeah, if everybody was a superior human being, then sure, you could have a democracy because it wouldn't really matter, not realistically. I mean, if the IQ difference was 3 points between the dumbest person and the smartest person, then sure, there wouldn't be any distinctive issues because the distinctive difference in merit would be so infinitesimal. It would be just the popularity advantage alone would more than compensate for the 3 points. But it's not a 3 point gap. You're talking like I think the smartest girl is like 180, and the dumbest person's like a 60.
Right.
It's not a flat characteristic of a 3x smarter. No, that's like comparing the strength of an ant to the strength of like Godzilla. Like there's an astronomical gap there. Like there's a huge difference in IQ of 10 points difference for a human being to a human
Right.
being. 100 to 110 is a huge jump. Like
Right.
80 to 90, there is such a massive difference. There's a legal jump. And you start talking 60 and 70 to 180. Holy sweet Jesus. Like, make that girl the president.
Yeah, the
Like,
sad thing is everybody pretty much has the same weighting, like in terms of you got your one little vote.
yeah. And that's a horrible idea. That's why plutocracies have always historically done better than democracies. Is because, yes, while there is corruption, there's corruption in both systems. The distinctive difference is the power structure is normalized.
Right. Yeah, Yeah, it's I mean, the America lasted for what, like a good 400 years or
240,
so.
200, yeah, 240, 250 years, if I'm not mistaken. The average country has its rise and fall within 240 years.
Okay,
And
so it's pretty much right on track.
yeah, and the one of the number one characteristics that I wouldn't say number one, but top five characteristics. The top three are lack of self discipline, lack of accountability, and currency hyperinflation through currency manipulation and abuse.
And that's pretty much where we're at now.
Three of the five. Yeah, that's three of the five.
But I think that the tough thing is like when these societies become powerful, there's so much wealth produced that people inherently they just start losing self discipline unless they're motivated by something other than pleasure, which most
Yeah,
people aren't.
yeah, yeah. That's exactly is the decay is a lack of accountability and a lack of self discipline. Because if I don't have to work hard to get what I want, and I don't have to work hard to get my basic needs met, then why would I work hard at all?
Right,
And we saw that recently with what they tried was UBI. They don't want to call it UBI, but unless they want to call it UBI, it depends on what's convenient for them. But again, it shows their lack of principles and lack of integrity, which is one of the other major core issues. But the problem with that is again, it's when you start talking about what happened with UBI, aside from hyperinflation, almost instantaneously, was also a massive increase in the lack of will to work. And that manifested again. It's just like anything else I said earlier before, which is if you take off the consequences component, you're going to find out the worst part of a human being, which
right,
is the vast majority of people actually do not want to work and they are extremely lazy. And given the opportunity not to work and the removal of that suppressed behavior and characteristic, you're going to get that behavior and characteristic in spades. That's why socialism and communism will never work, because they're one and the same. They're all communism. They're both communism.
right,
And communism doesn't work because you're depressing that characteristic by having a
right,
capitalist society. You're forcing them to work, which is removing a lot of that behavioral negativity, because you won't get to eat unless you do. And so I like food, therefore I must work. Well, in a communist society, that's not the case. And so they simply don't. And that increases cost of burden and cost of energy and cost of resources across the board. And the problem is if you increase that enough, it's going to make it impossible for the producers to perform or want to.
right,
And that happens in every communist society, and that's why they always fail. Argentina is just the most recent characteristic nation to realize communism does not, in fact, work at all, and they're removing it. It's just like with Missouri. 1 in 7 people live in poverty. Translation, 1 in 7 to 1 in 3 people live on state benefits, and communism doesn't work factually. And
right,
so they're realizing the fastest way to fix this issue is to remove the state income tax to bring the businesses into the state. Because once they do, the businesses will come into the state, jobs will be created, people will be forced to work, and the cuts to the income tax directly correlate to the cuts to the program, which removes them from the program, forcing them to work, which forces them to get a job, which forces them to work, which forces them to produce, which forces the economy to start.
right. And the other reason that communism doesn't work is because you're taking the rewards from the productive members and spreading them to the
The
unproductive.
people
And
that are unproductive, and that highly demotivates the people that are productive. It's why I'm
exactly,
not a proponent to taxes. And as I've said before, is when I inevitably do build my own country, I'm going to start with getting rid of taxes. The only tax we're going to have is voluntary taxes. And every tax that you opt into guarantees your program. It's just like if you want the fire department, you have to pay the fire department tax. You don't have to pay the fire department tax, but then they're going to look up your address and watch your house burn to ash. They're not going to touch your house. They're going to deploy and they're going to watch it burn. And if it spreads to a neighboring house that does have that tax paid, they're going to put the fire out in that yard. And they're going to watch your yard and house burn to ash. But you don't have to pay that tax. The only tax you'll have to pay is the VAT tax, which is a consumer tax. specifically a consumer tax. And that's because you're consuming something. Whether you're buying from this or you're buying from that, the only exemption will be investments. It'll be core and investments. So if it's like power, electrical, water, food, shelter, clothing, those things will be consumption tax exempt. Primary residence only, house-wise. And then for investments, all investments are tax-free. Because it incentivizes you to invest, which creates economic growth and opportunity.
Right.
Yeah. Which the only downside is it creates massive deflation because it's going to dramatically increase the strength of your currency, which is great. It's bad for taxes, but it's great for the currency because that means your dollar goes a hell of a lot further, which is demonstrated recently in, what country was that they were in? I think it was Thailand or something, where they effectively took $1 and bought like 12 different food items. It was like 4 or 5 meals worth of food for like $1.
Wow.
Legitimately $1. Like he converted $1 to the local currency and then just went shopping and bought everything from local snacks and breads and all kinds of stuff for like $1. Like,
yeah, that's insane.
Great video. I'll send it to you later if you want to see it. But yeah, like it's strength of a currency is extremely important. It's why the Kuwaiti dollar is so damn strong. And that's why the translation for our dollar to their dollar sucks.
Right.
It used to be on par. Now it's not. Yeah. Yeah. Deflation and inflation are both a hell of a drug.
Yep. I think the other big problem too is that we become a society that thinks it's more important to cater towards people's feelings and whether they're offended versus what the actual truth is.
Yeah, fuck your feelings. I care about the long-term prosperity of a country. I don't care about how you feel or what you think. If I wanted your opinion, I would ask for it. Not to be a dick, but you're a barista. I don't care what you think. You have no significant inputs because you have no significant inputs. Like, what do you do that's productive for society of any value that a machine couldn't replace in 60 seconds or less with a higher quality rating? Like, not to be that guy, but yeah, your productivity as a human being is highly relevant to your input. It's why people that produce billions of dollars in value every year have no problem getting onto Forbes. And people like, a barista is never going to, in their wildest dreams, end up on that or any TV show whatsoever because they're not relevant as a producer. They're not relevant as a voice. And it's just a simple reality. And it's, again, not to be a dick, but it's, you don't produce any value worth noting. So why does your opinion matter?
Yeah, the problem is like we can't ever get to the truth of the problem if we say, oh, that's offensive. It's always going to be
care about other people's feelings when we don't, and everybody knows it. Everybody knows that nobody cares, and it's demonstrated when you hit your hardest times. It's 100% realized by everyone always when they hit their hardest times and their worst moments, and they realize they really are alone. No one is coming to help you. No one is coming to save you. Captain Save-A-Ho is not going to randomly kick open the door and solve all your problems. Like, mommy and daddy are not going to magically make it magic eraser away. Like, your problems are very real, very tangible, and very ever-present. And the reality is, no one gives a shit. And if you don't solve it, no one is coming to save you. It's just like with when you go every day. Every day is a perfect example. Who wakes you up in the morning? You do. Who wakes you up and gets you ready for work? You do. Who gets in the car and goes to work? You do. Why? Because you are the one driving your ship. You are the one driving your vessel. You are the one driving your outcome. You are the one to blame when the outcome is negative. You are the one to blame when the outcome is undesired.
right. And like even if somebody else puts you in a position, like an undesirable position, you have the power to get out. So are you just going to stay there, or
yes, are you just going to sit there and deal with that every day? Or are you going to do something about it?
And that's the problem. At least half of the nation feels like, hey, it's the government's job to come and take them to meet their basic needs. And, once the government collapses, you know, you're going to have to be self accountable.
Yeah. The perfect way to look at the government is like this. The government gains its capacity to be a government through two primary sources. One is government employees, which show up because it's supposed to be the most stable job in existence. They are completely risk adverse. They do not like risk. They do not like change. They do not like instability. What do you think is going to happen with those people when you tell them the currency is now worthless and the money they get paid from their job has no value?
Right.
Number two is contractors, and they work directly for money.
Right.
What do you think they're going to do when you tell them they're not going to get paid?
Right.
It don't take a rocket scientist to figure this out.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's another question. Who
What's
keeps
that?
the military in check?
No idea who.
The government.
Hmm.
The government regulates and oversees and commits and conducts oversight of the military. Who are the very same people that we just said weren't going to be there if shit hits the fan?
Right.
There is no checks and balances in an environment where the staff are no longer paid.
Right. What do you think
Just
is going
like
to
in
happen?
a commercial environment. Do you think employees at Walmart or mom.com are going to come to work if you're not going to pay them? Or if you're going to pay them in money that's worthless?
Right.
Why would they come to work? For what reason?
Right.
A wheelbarrow of paper?
And I think, if society really breaks down, the military, they're gonna, that's how you have these military coups. They got the weapons, they got the means of protection.
Man. They're going to be men going their own way.
Right.
Like, they're going to straight up click up, and they are going to straight up G up. And they are going to go and do the things that they find relevant to them, and they're going to go do the things that are relevant to their families and their survival and their well-being.
Right.
It's just like the memes that you saw on the internet that weren't so very memes, where they were like, a tank for sale, $300, or it was like a Humvee for sale, highest bidder, or $2,800 a month, like, where they were making jokes about not getting paid because of government shutdowns. This was reflected in the government shutdowns. Now, again, the military are still people. Even though they are a higher standard of people, they are still people. And they, just like every other person, have suppressed behaviors because of accountability and penalties and consequences. What happens when there is no longer an oversight and enforcement body to ensure that those characteristics and behaviors are enforced? Do you really, truly think that the military, as an aggregate, is going to behave?
Right.
Because historically speaking, we know exactly how that plays out. And I promise you, it ain't pretty.
That's pretty, we see hints of it in Mexico, where a lot of the military, they kind of linked up with the cartels.
Corrupt as fuck because they can do whatever they want. Haiti, perfect example. That's an ongoing event right now. Djibouti, Dakar, South Africa, parts all across South Africa. I mean, coastlines of South Africa. You got Somalia. These are all perfect examples. Like, pick your poison, man. The outcome is all the same. Like,
yeah, it's just history repeating itself, but
yeah, time and time again. And the biggest, again, one of the biggest issues is our arrogance, as I've hinted on before. Is our problem is we think we're special. We think that we are the exception. We think that that won't be us. No, not our military, not our government, not our currency. Now we're the unsinkable ship.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we just think the laws of reality just don't apply to us. Like we're different.
Yeah, we're not. But yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think because it's kind of like the delayed punishment because you don't see the repercussions immediately, and you can hide behind like the wealth. It kind of buffers the spanking,
Yeah.
but
You
you
don't feel
know,
the pain until later, but that's the issue is we've pushed the pain off for too long. And
right?
now the pain's catastrophic. But
It's like
it is what it is.
exactly. You've been using painkillers so much, your whole body's numb, but the pain is a signal to your body that something's
Signal
wrong.
of a more core issue, yeah. And instead of going and getting the surgery you needed, you just kept popping down Vicodin. Well, congratulations, you're in stage 4 organ failure.
Right.
Now you're gonna feel the fuck around. You've passed the fuck around point to the find out portion.
That's where we're at now. There's no more like pills for us to take to hide what's really going on.
Nope. But we're there, man, and we're gonna find out. But yeah, dude, I'm gonna jump off here. I gotta get to sleep. Got some stuff I gotta deal with tomorrow morning.
All right, man. Yo, it's good having you on, man. We'll catch y'all next time.
Yep. All right, brother.